So welcome to our webinar today, and we'll be discussing the new Smart Enrol forms because we are sunsetting the external enrolment forms. So if you've been with eSkilled for a while, you'll most likely be using those external forms. So time to swap over and use Smart Enrol. Just to introduce myself, my name is Hailey Zeinstra. I'm a Customer Success Manager with eSkilled, and it's lovely to have you all joining in the session today. If this is your first time joining us on a GoToWebinar session, and you haven't used this platform before to join a webinar, if you do want to ask a question, you'll see the little speech bubble top right corner of your screen there. Go ahead and give it a click. Once you do, it should pop up a little drawer across the screen, and you'll see the text box in the bottom right corner of your screen. So if you do want to submit a question through the session, feel free to do so. If it's appropriate to answer on the call, I'll try and answer them as they come through. If I'm getting specific questions, then maybe we'll connect after the session to see if we can answer those for you. But yes, that little question mark button in the top right corner will be your friend if you have anything to ask. And from there, just a quick whip around of what we'll cover in the session today. We'll go over the purpose and features of Smart Enrol. We'll go over how to set up the Smart Enrol default templates. And then we'll go into a bit more detail how you can use those templates and enroll as a student. And then we'll also go into more detail there as well on editing and building with the Smart Enrol form editor. And if we do have time, or if that is something that people are interested in covering, we'll see if we can squeeze in creating custom fields for your form as well. So quite a bit to try and whip through there. Just to give a quick overview as well, we'll start off with that. Since the external enrolment forms are sunsetting in November, we're coming very close to that time. That's why we are introducing the Smart Enrol forms, and they have a whole range of different features that are not available on those existing external enrolment forms. And those are the ability to add custom fields, much like this little dietary requirements example here. And you could already do that on the external enrolment forms too, but you didn't have control of where you could place them. So with Smart Enrol, you're able to sort of assemble those and collect them together and place them in the form where you prefer that they would be presented and asked to a student, sort of sequencing those questions. You've also got the ability to drag and drop any questions whatsoever. So whether that's the standard questions on the default templates, or whether that's you building from scratch and moving your fields around, you've got the ability to completely customize that. It introduces collection of digital signatures, so you can have students provide a signature at the end of the enrolment form there, or anywhere you want, because as I said, you can place things where you want them. And Smart Enrol will also automatically capture and store a PDF copy of that form that has been filled in. So a little example there on the screen sort of transposes what they've filled in onto digital fields into a PDF document, so that you've always got a copy of that against their student profile. And it also has the ability to brand your enrolment form, and not only adding texts and fields, but you can also add images onto the forms as well. So that sort of wraps up the new features that are included with Smart Enrol. So we're excited to offer some, greater flexibility in the design and customization of what you can do with your own enrolment forms. Based on that, I'm interested to know, and did my polls come through? I'm wondering where they are sitting. Maybe they did not come through. Maybe they didn't. Well, that's all right. We'll go through all of those features and highlight them equally. I was just going to ask which one was more exciting to everyone on the call. Well, we'll chug along and let's do some more deep diving. So if those features did not get you excited, you just want an enrolment form that looks like an enrolment form. What you've got now is fine. You don't really care what's on there as long as it meets the requirements. We've got default templates for you. So I'll go through that component first because it's a bit of a no fuss approach. Don't really want anything special, just need the standard stuff that we already support with the standard and express forms. So if that sounds like you, all you would need to do is go to your program instances, jump onto the enrolment form tab, and you'll see a couple of newer boxes. You've got probably, if you're already set up, either express or standard selected in this first drop-down box where it's asking you to select an enrolment form type. To change that over, obviously you'll just change that to Smart Enrol. And once you do, there's a second drop-down box next to that one as well. And this is where it's got the list of default templates that are available in your account. So if you are already using the Express enrolment forms, the equivalent to that would be the basic ones. So these are great if it's maybe non-accredited training or you don't care to have students fill everything out up front. You just want to capture basic details like their name, email address, and phone number, and then they're in, basically. If you're using the standard form though, which I think a lot of people would be, that's the one that would have had all the EVETMIS minimum requirement questions on there. The one you'd want to select then as an equivalent would be the templates labeled as EVETMIS because they've got all those relevant questions on there. There's also two versions of each template. So pretty much, as you can see there, if you're collecting fees, you'll need one that has a payment gateway, which would be the one that is sort of blank. But if you are not collecting fees from your students, it's just managing how they enroll into the course and there's not any collection of fees, you could use the one that says no payment gateway in brackets, which simply means that on that enrolment form, there's no payment page, there's no payment gateway. They just need to put in all their details and click submit, and they'll pop into the system. So depending on your own enrolment process, that'll inform you as to which of those templates would be the most appropriate for you. And for the most part, most people will probably fall into either of these two buckets, using the basic or using the EVETMIS. You may find though, if you are a training organisation that does deliver any funded training, if there's CRI-cost delivery or vet student loans, they'll have specific extra questions that they may require you to collect upon enrolment applications. And so we do have default templates in place for all of these as well. They may not be visible in your account though. So to keep it streamlined, we're only uploading those if it is applicable for your training organisation. So if you're noticing that they're not there and you think that you may need them, please reach out to our support team so we can organise to have them uploaded for you. Every single user should be able to see the basic and the EVETMIS ones, but these specific ones for each state, for CRI-costs and for vet student loans, would be only provided to you if we're aware that you need it. So we've got the support email up there if you're not already familiar with that. Do just reach out to them and shoot through a request. Excellent. So looking into this next slides, maybe it's good if we jump into the system and have a little look in there and how that all works, just to work through that, not just based on slides. So if we wanted to turn on Smart Enrol, what we would do is go ahead and navigate to the Programs menu item on the left here. And then at the top of the page, go ahead and select Program Instances. And from your drop-down box, just work through all those program instances that you do have in your library. We'll go for this one as a bit of an example. Once you've got it open, you've got your subsequent tabs that are sitting there. So we'll go for the Enrolment Form tab. And this is where we've got our first drop-down box. Now, if you're currently set up with either the Express or the Standard, let's revert it back so it looks like what it will appear as on your end. So you'll need to make the change. Go ahead and select Smart Enrol from the drop-down box. And you'll notice that when you do that, you'll get another drop-down box that appears just to the right of it. So at the minute, we don't have any requirement to select a template, but as soon as we select Smart Enrol, that does pop up. And that's where we can see our library of templates. So we've got the basic no payment gateway. Our account has all the funded ones, Cricos ones, best student loans ones. So you'll just work through and select the one that's most applicable for you. I think I had a little webinar one that was originally attached there. But that's pretty much it in terms of how to change it over. If you're happy to use the default templates, the job is done just there. Make sure you do update to save those changes, and that's now in effect. Oh, that's lost the presentation mode. Lovely. In terms of using Smart Enrol from there, I'll just come back to the slides and review how we can share the information as a link or as an iframe. So you've kind of got two ways that you can do that. So if you're not already familiar with iframe code, the concept there is it's a piece of web code that you can plop onto your website, and that will display the enrollment form into your web page. And of course, a link I think we're all fairly familiar with. You can sort of click on the link and it will take you to a specific web page. But there's 4 different levels where we do provide an enrollment link or an iframe code. So we can go through settings, and there's some universal settings that have the ability to select any course. We've got a program instance level that's fairly locked. So you're enrolling into a specific program instance. You can go down even more granular as well to be enrolling into a particular group or intake. Usually that aligns with a particular date or month, for example. And then we've also got company as well. If you're utilizing companies in the system, it's possible to have a unique link that will connect that student enrollment with that particular company too. So in case this is brand new to you in terms of allowing students to enroll for themselves, I'll just take you around the system and show you where you can find each of these and maybe a little example on how iframe functions as a concept as well. All right, back to the eSkilled page. So we'll start at the top with the settings level. So if we go into administration and settings, this is where we've got our Smart Enrol code and our Smart Enrol link in that series of buttons that just appear underneath your logo. And in reference to a iframe code, all you need to do is click the Smart Enrol code button. And that's, as it's sort of saying in the little pop-up, going to copy the iframe into your clipboard. Go ahead and click OK. In terms of what that would look like, we can give that a little preview using this website here. You could imagine the right-hand side of the page is a blank website. And then on the left-hand side, this is where we have the website code that builds and designs the website. So it's got a little example here. My first heading, my first paragraph, pretty simple. We'll actually delete that and we'll put in the iframe code there. And then we can run to see what that would look like if it was used on a website. So this is what is essentially going to sit on the page. So that is one way that you can share this with your students so that they can select what they want to enroll for and then subsequently fill in their form as well. The other option is a link, which is a little more straightforward. So if we click the button there to access a Smart Enrol link, that's again copied a link into the clipboard. So we could open that into a new browser and paste. And realistically, the difference is just this is a whole web page that the student is directed to visit. With the iframe code, that could be displayed as one little section on your own website so that they don't leave the website while they're booking. Whereas the link will take them to this whole brand new individual page. And this level of link will let them pick any training item that's in your library and published for enrollments. They can go and select any course and any group or any intake that they'd like to join. So there's no restrictions on them from here. You might want to restrict them though. Good use case for that is if you have a particular page on your website advertising a particular course or delivery mode, and you want to sort of make sure you're directing students to enroll into that particular version. If that's what you would like, if we go over to programs and program instances, pull up the particular course that you're wanting to have enrollments for. I want this one. As soon as you open that up, it's got the details tab open. And if you have a look in the sort of right-hand side of the page, you've got your Smart Enrol functions there. The first one here, this would be the iframe. And again, if we click on that, you get the little notification. It's copied to the clipboard. And same, you've got the link there as well. So look very similar if we take that link and have a quick look-see. But our program and course type is locked down. So there won't be any confusion. Student can't end up booking into a completely different course. We're directing them to the particular training item that they're perhaps browsing a web page for. And then they do still have control over choosing the date that they'd like to attend. And then we do have a group level link as well. So if you were to look at those specific groups for this CPR training, we can share a link specifically for this one on 17th of December. If we open the group itself, there's also some Smart Enrol functions at the group level. And if we go ahead and grab that link and just compare what that looks like. In this case, all of these selection drop-down menus are locked. We don't give them any choice. We're directing them specifically to that group and that date. And then they're presented directly with their form to start filling in. So this is essentially what the default templates are coming up looking like. It is relatively similar to what the standard Express forms are looking like, but a little bit sleeker and, as I've said, more opportunity to customize. So if you weren't already sure about how to share the form with students, there's a direct link for lots of different case scenarios there. If you are utilizing companies, there is a link available linked to a direct company as well. So for example, if we open a company profile page, there is a Smart Enrol link available there. Doesn't really look any different, but given that this is in connection to the company, should the student fill out the form after following this specific link, their enrolment would automatically be connected to that company. And depending on your company setup, might be going a little bit too deep here, but just nice to cover all the boxes. If you are choosing to restrict which programs they are allowed to enroll into, you'll have this menu item here for programs where you would need to fill out a library of specific training programs that you let that company operate with. And there is a Smart Enrol link here that you can grab, which would be for a specific program instance and perhaps a specific group as well. So this one on the details page for the company acts as your sort of similar to the settings level one. Students using that link could pick any training item that is available. But if you want to control that more closely and you've enabled that setting, you would need to populate which of those program instances and groups that company is allowed to operate with. And then they have the ability to grab a specific link for those as well. Terrific. So yeah, that covers off our 4 levels there. Good to note as well, if you've already got your website set up with an iframe and that was for the standard and the express forms, Smart Enrol is backwards compatible. So what that means for you really is that you don't have to change anything or do anything. Those links and those iframes should still work. If you've swapped your program instance over to Smart Enrol, then it will just change the forms accordingly. And there's just a few slides here to recap for you where all those were, so you can access that later without having to necessarily watch through the whole recording. So I'll skip through those fairly quickly. That takes us to the more juicy part of editing your Smart Enrol templates. So if that's not something you're interested in, if that's enough information for you to go ahead and make the change, feel free to go through and do that. This is a good time to just have a pause. I'll just check what questions we've got here. Some of these might be best answered separately. And actually, I think that last sentence may have answered that last question. I'll reach out to you two separately to see if I can help you with those. I don't know that they're widely applicable there. All right, so editing, let's dive into it. And a few of the things that we'll touch on here, we'll touch on how you can add a question. There's obviously the standard default templates. You might want to ask more, or you might want to ask less. There's also, I'll show you how you can remove a question too, if there's something that's not needed to be asked. We can also rename the existing field labels. So we can change whatever mobile phone number to say cell phone number if you were working with an American audience, for example. It's also possible to change the order of the questions and how they have been organized on the form. And finally, you've got the option to add text or images onto the form as well. So we'll try and cover off all of those cases and take you through how those are done. Before you do any editing though, strongly recommend that we're working with a new version of the form because we've supplied the templates as a base. It can be good to keep that base handy so that you can, come back and recreate new versions of forms if things change in the future. If, you're creating different particular enrollment journeys, means you always have the standard base that was always available. You're just creating a new version of that each time. So maybe that's a good place to kick things off. We'll go and have a look at how you can duplicate the existing templates and keep that focus a little narrow for the minute. All right. So if we want to do that, we're looking down here in the administration menu and would be directing our attention to this little item called Form Creator. And initially we want to focus attention over here on the right-hand side. If we want to duplicate an existing template, we want to have a look in the templates library. So we'll click on the drop-down box there and we'll see all the different ones that are currently there. Generally speaking, I think there's only going to be 4 available for you. Let's go with one of these event-based ones, maybe this one. It gets a bit more busy once you open the template. Now, also interesting to note, I'm working on my laptop screen here. It's a little smaller, so you can see part of the page is being cut off. There's a few ways you can manage that. We can actually shrink this blue side menu. Just next to your logo, there's the 2 arrows facing to the left. Go ahead and give them a click, and that seems to have given me enough space, which is lovely. So we've got our existing template open. Let's duplicate it. You've got a series of buttons here at the top of the editor. One of those is duplicate. So we'll go ahead and give that a click. It's asking us to provide a new template name. Let's call it new webinar template. So it's easy to find. Go ahead and click duplicate. And that's been done. We can clear the confirmation. And you'll notice if we look closely here at the templates drop-down box, it has automatically opened up our new version ready for us to start editing. So pretty easy job there with the duplicating. When it gets down to the editing, that's where we have a lot more that we can play with. To sort of ground your orientation on the page, because it did get a bit busy, it's basically split into 3. So on the left here, we've got the controls panel or little menu. This also, you'll notice if you are working on a smaller screen, it has the little arrows facing to the left, and we can shrink that away to give us a bit more space as well. I'm going to keep it open for now. Basically, the controls are all the things that it's possible to add onto this Smart Enrol form. And how we interact with them is via drag and drop. So if I hold my mouse over the card, for example, you can see the little hand icon, and we just want to click and hold down on that left mouse item and pull it across into the middle of the page. The middle of the page here, this is our designer area, and this is all about organizing and arranging the fields on the form. So yeah, if we want to add a card, we'll do that. We'll pull it across, and you can see it's gone into a little shadow mode. It's sort of indicating where it's going to drop or what its landing position will be. I'm going to drop this card under the other cards, and that's a nice soft introduction to card as well. It's basically managing the heading or the little section that you can add questions and items onto. So we had controls on the left, all the things you can add into your form. We've got designer in the center. This is where you arrange and organize all those questions, sort of see how they're going to sit on your form page. Then on the right, we have page settings and control settings that sit a little further below. Now, once we've set up and are happy with our page settings, we don't really need to play with them. So there is, again, this little arrow icon, which will help us shrink it out of the way. Because for the most part, control settings is where we're going to have our focus. And control settings is basically where we edit and make changes to any fields that are in the center of the form. So for example, if I well, I'm already clicked on our card that we dragged across, and we can see it has a very bland example or placeholder heading title where it just says header text. We don't edit that here in the designer. It's actually controlled over here on the control settings. So you can see the header text is header text, but this is where we might say more questions. So we can rename that as we wish. And so if what you're looking to do is just change this first header text from general to say personal information, you can absolutely do that. So lots of ways that you can customize that, and different language that you might want to use, different ways you want to refer to those questions on the form. That's something that Smart Enrol now allows you to customize in full. Terrific. What else did we want to have a go at? We have also the option to rename fields. So for example, if we come down here and have a look at home phone number, not too many people have those these days. And we might want to change how we describe that. It might not be relevant to our student base, particularly if you're working with a lot of young people. If that's the case, we might want to change that. Again, I've just clicked on that field in the center, and we've now got all our control settings that have shown up on the right-hand side. And again, we've got the label for that field, which is shown here as home phone number. Let's change that to landline, maybe. Maybe that makes more sense. Maybe you want to remove it altogether. If it's not a relevant question, you can see the little cross that's there. We can very easily just click the cross to remove the question in full because we don't want to ask it. And if we want to change the order of questions that are already on the form, we can do that too. I guess at the minute, this sort of looks like it's organized in a left to right fashion. You'd provide title, first name, preferred name, middle name, surname. Maybe your preference is that you're sort of reading down the page. So you would have title, and underneath that, we want to drag over first name. And then followed by preferred name after they've given you first name. So you can absolutely customize that the way that you prefer to sequence and order those questions. I'm not very good at this, am I? Title, first, middle, preferred. You get the idea. You can absolutely move them all around. What was the other one we had? We've renamed, we haven't added a question yet. That's probably a good one to touch on too. If you would like to add a question, we'll come over here to controls, and generally that would be a field, assuming you want the student to fill in some information for you. So I'll drag a field across, and generally speaking, they should sit on top of a card. That's the concept of just organizing them under a heading. It is possible to drag them not on a card. If you didn't want to utilize the cards, they can sit just straight onto the page there, but it does look a bit nicer when they are. Where did that jump? I lost it. When they are on a card. Where's your landing spot? There. So once we have dragged across a new field and we've got that field selected, we drive our attention over here to control settings. And this is where we have custom field. We haven't touched on building them yet, but if you have created a custom question, you do definitely need to turn that on. If you're just using a standard system question, it can remain in the off position. Then we've got objects, and this is talking about what is this question relating to? Is it a student related question? And would that be stored on the student profile? or is it an enrolment related question that's more relevant to the specific enrolment? Most things live in student. When we talk about enrolment, this is where we start to see elective unit choices. If you let students select their electives, some of the fees and payments options are in here as well. But for the most part, most things live under student in terms of system default questions. And then it's just a library of all the different fields that are available. I think most of them are already included on the EBETMIS form, which is why they're in that sort of darker grey colour. Yes, in fact, all of them are included. Let's keep going down. Let's go for alternative email address. That's an available option. Now, we've selected that and it has automatically applied that as the label. If you want to further customize it, we've already touched on how you can do that just by changing the text there. Maybe we just want it to say alt email address. And you've got the toggle here to indicate if this is a required field or if it is an optional field. So if it's required, you'll see it gets the little red asterisk that sits next to it. That means the student can't skip the question. They have to provide you with a response when they fill in that form. Obviously, if we leave it set as not required, it's optional. They could leave it blank and skip that when they do their submission. And finally, in terms of those control settings, when you're adding a new question, you do have the ability to choose what size that field sits at. So you could choose that it takes up the full width of the form page, or you can go for half, which allows you to sort of sit them or nest them next to each other, similar to what we see here with personal information. And that will just mean instead of having a really, really, really long form, that you can, nest it up so that it's a little bit more condensed together. That's a really quick whip around on some of those main things that we touched on potentially learning how to do. So in summary, the page is really split into 3. Controls on the left, they're all the things you can add on. Designer in the middle, sort of where you arrange and organize those things that you've added. And control settings where you can then customize the detailed information in each of those fields. I'll zip through this as well because I feel like we've already covered it, but specifically on your control settings, you've got that custom field toggle. If you have created custom fields in the system, this allows you to connect them together. You need to choose what object the question is in relation to, whether that's a student-related question or an enrollment-specific question. And then you've got your system field name. So that's going to show you the list of all the default student-related questions available in the student management system. When we talk about those field labels, it's worth mentioning, just because you change it for the form, if you've changed that to say that it's not home phone number, it's landline, it only changes it on the form. So for students who are filling in the form, they will see landline. In your student management system, when administrators are looking at the student profile, it's still going to be referred to as a home phone number. So it's just masking what that field is labeled as on the form exclusively, not within the wider system. Just want to make that clear so there isn't any confusion. And the sizing, we talked about that. So you've got full that sit all the way across the page, or you've got the half that sort of nest themselves together a little more closely so that you can collect them together and not have such a long form. All right. So that pretty much covered off making edits to the templates that are already there. We'll touch on where you start if you wanted to start from the very beginning as well. So if you want to start from the very beginning, what we'll do is you'll firstly need to select what type of form you're creating. And there are 2 options. The form creator is also utilized with our waitlisting feature, which is where you would create a contact form. But specifically, we're creating the Smart Enrol ones, so just make sure that you do choose Smart Enrol from the system there. And obviously providing your template name. It's also got an active status, so make sure you do turn it to active, otherwise you won't be able to see it when you are connecting it to program instances. So particularly as you're not copying from or duplicating an existing template, these are all things you'll need to consider as part of initial setup. Next, it asks you to describe how many tabs would you like across the page, and you can set up as many as you really prefer. Ours usually have 2 or 3 if you do have a payment stage of the enrolment. That's the way that it's been split out. But if you prefer to collect them all onto one tab and just have one big page that students fill out, you could do it that way as well. Or if you feel like your enrolment process should be more logically split out into smaller sections, you can have 5, as I've done in this example slide here. So you just want to, in tab count, specify how many total would you like to have. And underneath that, you'll need to provide the name for each tab. And you'll just click on each one as you go through to give it its relevant name. Once you're selected on your first initial tab, it also wants you to decide how many columns the page should be split into. It's a little hard to see in the pale white there, but this is currently split into 2. So there's one on the left and one on the right. You can split it up to 3 different columns on that tab as well. So just different ways of organizing the page. Choose which one you prefer. There's one last setting that we have when creating from scratch, and that one's called First Save Enrollment. What does this mean? Where you have toggled this on, this tab is going to be where the enrollment is first saved. So it's when this data is actually pushed into the student management system and recorded. And typically we'd suggest put it on page 1 and then have all the basic details on page 1. So a first name, a last name, an email address, and a phone number. That means if your students are bailing out of the enrolment process, they're not seeing it all the way to the end, their information will still be pushed into the system. You can still follow them up. Hey, I saw you started your application, you didn't finish it. How can we help you put that through? Are you still interested? Means you can go through and have those sorts of conversations. Alternatively, some people don't like that. If you haven't made it to the payment checkout page, we really don't care about you and we don't have time to follow you up, could be your thought process there. And in that case, you want to put First Save Enrollment on your final page at the payment stage, which would mean if a student doesn't successfully check out their cart and actually pay for their enrollment, then nothing is communicated back to the student management system and you don't have half-baked enrollments coming through. So just consider what your feelings are there. Are you keen to capture those details and follow up students, or is that not something you're looking to have in your process and you really do just want them to actually finish the form before their information is actively shared to you? I'm just having a look here in the questions. And we haven't had a look at the payment plan tab yet, so we'll come up to that shortly. If you don't collect payments, there's an entire template which would not include any payment plan information. It's just missing off the template would sort of answer that question. So if you're not charging students, you don't need to include that information on the form. Doesn't necessarily need to be deleted off because you have 2 versions. One that would have payment details, and there should be a second one that has in brackets no payment gateway, meaning that there's no payment information on that template. Terrific. So let's go in and create a form from scratch and put all those slides together. Should be a pretty quick process. It's just nice to have those support slides there to go back to when you guys are having a crack at it after the fact. So what I'm going to do is simply refresh my page and not save any of those changes. It's going to take me back to our blank beginning steps. So first of all, we want to look here at form type and say which type of form we're creating. We're creating a Smart Enrol form. We want to give it a name. Let's call it from scratch. And we want to make it active so we can already select it and find it in the drop-down library when we're attaching it to a program instance. If it's been set to deactive, you won't be able to find it when you're setting it up on program instances. How many tabs do I want? Let's go with 2. And it's instantly given me tab 1 and tab 2. Let's keep clicked on tab 1 to start with. Let's call this first questions. You can customize that however you like. How many columns do I want? Let's just stick with 1. First save enrollment. Let's say yes, I want to definitely get my student details as soon as possible. And the button that they click to go through to the next page, you can also customize what that says. So apply now, pay now, progress now, whatever you want it to say, go ahead and customize that how you want it. Then we need to look at tab 2 as well. So we'll click onto tab 2. What name do we want there? Let's say last questions. How many columns? We just want 1. And this maybe rather than next might be finalize or submit. You can definitely customize that how you like. Now, important that you have set up columns. I don't think it would let you drag and drop items across here. Actually doesn't let me go back to having 0 columns, funnily enough. But yeah, this would be very important that you do focus on configuring the page settings first, just so that the next items, like dragging across your controls, is going to function as you want it. Terrific. Where's my mouse gone? There we go. Now, I think good to focus a little bit on the controls that you can add as well. They're pretty straightforward and mostly self-explanatory based on name. We've already touched on cards. They're basically headings and they allow you to group similar questions together. We've got fields. We've touched on them as well. That's input areas for students where they're answering a question. But there is also checkboxes. This presents as a single checkbox and usually used for agreement or consent. Might be, I consent to have my photo taken on the day. Checkbox would just be one single checkbox. They need a ticket or leave it unchecked. It doesn't let you create like a quiz question with multiple checks or a check yes or no. It's just one check. If it is checked, you're a yes. If it's not checked, it's a no, or however you phrase your question should make it clear to the student that they are opting in or opting out of whatever you're asking. There's also the HTML control. This allows you to do text formatting. So you can make things bold, big fat red letters. If there's something that students are often missing in applications, you can utilize that to your advantage. You can also put images in here too, which could be quite helpful in terms of giving a visual prompt to students of what you actually want them to fill in or upload. There's the payment gateway. So if you are collecting fees from students, you'll definitely want to make sure that you have added your payment gateway. There's 3 additional fields that you would need to add as well, just to do that in totality. That would be the fees table, a payment plan table, and a payment plan drop down. And a little bit more detail there on how you can set that up. You've also got the signature box and document upload. So obviously capturing input by student signature or uploading of a document. And finally, we've got the declaration, and this lets you connect to display your student declaration or your privacy statement onto the form. So those are all the different things that we can add on. Let's go and have a little explore on those before we look into custom fields. And we might wrap it up once we go through each of these. And I might go to one that I created earlier, the webinar one, just to give a good example of how those HTML fields can really be a visual assistance. Something else we haven't touched on yet is, how do I know what this looks like? Because that is also very helpful in the building process to use the preview function at the top of the page here. So go ahead and click on preview. It's going to open it in a new browser tab, and this is exactly what the student would see when they're booking in. So fairly straightforward for this first section. Let's go next. And actually in preview mode, the next button does not work. However, if you're at the top of the page, you are able to click on step 2 or tab 2 or whatever your tabs are called to actually see what each one looks like. And there's a bit of an example one I've put together here. There's a document upload requirement. And then there's also some extra information for students to really help them understand, how can I upload a document that's going to be accepted? And that's where I've utilized a HTML area to put in this extra text. It's got formatting in the sense that it's been put in with bullet points, and it's also supporting the photos or the pictures there to help demonstrate what each of those items are. If we go back to our editing mode to put that together, all you want to do, and we were on page 2 here, is drag over this HTML field and drop that where you want to have it. And that looks like this. When you're editing it, this is an exception to the rule. You actually do edit HTML in the center of the page. So as you can see, pops up your typical little text editing functions, like changing the font, the size, color is available. So like I mentioned before, if you want to put it in big, fat, bold, red writing, that's also something you can do. With pictures, you can just copy paste them in, or if you do have a particular web link that you want to link against, you can do that as well. So yeah, really nice that you can put some really rich information there to support what you're expecting students to actually do. Just transform it a little bit too, from being pretty grey and white. So you can add a dash of color and make it a little bit more visually appealing to fill in as well, if that's something that you'd like to customize for your forms. In terms of adding the declarations, we've already got this included at the bottom of the form as a declaration item there. When you are editing on the right-hand side with your control settings, there's 2 different types you can choose to use. So you're controlling here if it's the student declaration or the privacy statement that you would like it to display. Where does that come from? What is the student declaration going to say? That's going to depend on what you have set up in your templates. All the way back in your onboarding training, hopefully they covered off with you the fact that you've got your privacy notice available here in your templates. So this is what's going to display for your privacy notice. And in terms of your student declaration, there's always a default one that's set up. So it will likely be using a default. If you're someone who's got multiple declarations, it will depend what you've controlled at program instance level if you've picked something different, but you can click on the little 3-dot icon go for edit, and that will give you the actual text that is going to be used for your declaration. So if you're interested in editing that slightly outside of the, the Smart Enrol form itself, but you can certainly display those on the Smart Enrol form. Signature box, not really much to be controlled with that, other than whether it is a required field or an optional field. Document upload, that's probably another good one to try and cover off. And I did have one added here. So this one, again, not too much to edit. I'm going to just shrink this with my little arrow. That's also here with our control settings. Again, really just if it's a required field and mandatory for them to upload a file and what that document upload label is identified as. So in my case, I'd probably call that ID, upload your ID. Checkbox, that is also, we have one here. And again, not much to customize other than the actual statement that they have the opportunity to check the box against and whether that is enforced or required or optional. And coming over to Payment Gateway, I think it will be good if we look at one that has Payment Gateway set up. So let's go to the Iframes national one. This one has a third tab for payment at the ends. So if you are collecting payments from students upon enrolment, definitely use this template. In terms of the fields that it's got, Payment Gateway has been dragged across here in this section labeled as payment information, and that is going to not really have any control settings whatsoever because your Payment Gateway would be configured and set up under your settings over here with payment and declaration. So you'll be connected to one of the payment gateways, and that is essentially that connection point between the two there. With payment plan and fees table, this is now looking back to the program instance to check, well, what payment plans have you attached so that they can show those to the student. What are the fees that are attached to this course so that they can display that to the student. Let's have a little preview. Oh yeah, preview isn't always great for this because it's not actually attached to any program instance, but have a little play if you're someone who has fees. Put yourself through to that test enrollment phase of having that payment page come up. You'll basically see here in your fees table, what are you going to be charged? What are your options on how to pay? Is it a weekly installment? Is it an upfront? Is there no option that you just locked into one option? Payment plan table is going to show you when your payments are due. One this month, one next month, one now, whatever that is. And then the payment gateway is where they'll put in their card details and such. So that's a bit of an overview, I would suppose, on each of those different controls that we can add onto the form. And I think that's a good place to wrap things up for today. Gives you a lot of tools in your toolbox to go through and edit and customize what it is that you've got on your enrollment forms there. Oh, again, that's come all the way down. Sorry about that. Let's go back to the thank you slide. Oh, it doesn't want to. Sorry, everyone. But hopefully that was really informative and gave you a good overview on how you can customize and edit your own forms. Few questions that have come through, so I'll be reaching out to you a little later today to follow those up. Some of them are quite specific, so it might be better to have a chit chat together on your specific use cases here rather than try and address as an overall question. But yeah, again, thank you everyone for your time and attention. I hope that was helpful.